Mode.
Well, welcome to the fourth time or hour that we're spending together around the title of The Science of Creating Wealth. And today we're going to really dig just a little deeper and talk a little bit more about, why people make mistakes, why people run into obstacles relative to creating wealth. And I'm going to key in on a couple points especially, but I also wanted to just review for some of you. A lot of you have been on several of these webinars before, and yes, we are recording them, and they will be available for re-listening to at a later time, and it should be fairly shortly that we'll have them up and accessible on our website. But rethinking, just take yourself back for a minute. Hopefully you're not traveling at 100 miles an hour and you're able to kind of sit and just think a little bit. These are generally the reasons people tell us that they went in to own their own practice in the first place. And the key word that keeps coming up is freedom. They wanted to be free to run your practice the way you want it. It's yours, and you wanted to be your own boss. That's probably what we hear, number one. Also, many people choose dentistry as a profession because they perceived they were going to have the lifestyle that they wanted to have. They also felt like they'd be in control of the time in their life. And of course, another reason people do go into any business or open their own practice is they felt like they had a better opportunity to create financial freedom. And another reason that we hear sometimes, though maybe not as often as others, and of course, so each one of these may have meaning for you. None of them may have meaning at all, but they wanted to work with the people they wanted to work with and on the people that they wanted to work on. So another reason why we became dentists and own our own practice is because we thought we could do the level of dentistry that we felt was worthwhile and was fulfilling to us, and of course, obviously rewarding to our patients. And I put this last line here because, I have no clue really which each individually of any of you, why you went into practice and what's really important to you now. I would love to have you just email me personally at mike@cfpd.com and just say, this is the prime reason why I went into practice. This is what I want out of my practice. And so just a short review. I certainly can't review everything that we've done on the previous time together, but I think really, the major piece, the major idea behind everything is that we really create in our lives what we think. The greatest power in the universe is thought. And too many times we don't understand the power, I'd say the potential to create what we want and do what we want in our life, but also the obvious potential to not do it or to sabotage ourselves. So I want you to understand that, as a young dentist, for better than 19 years, I read As a Man Thinketh every day. Every day of my life, I read As a Man Thinketh, because it's truly what we think is what we create. So this really was meant to be a group of seminars taken part by part, taking the whole system of creating wealth and looking at fundamental pieces of it and reviewing some of them. But obviously, as I've said before, mindset. It's so fascinating when I get on the phone and I talk to dentists, and of course all I work with is my own colleagues, but you can tell immediately if someone has the desire or the motivation to move forward, and you know that with your own patients. Some people you're just, tugging and pulling at them every minute, and the real winners, they're asking you, what's the next step? And the next step is always, when you're motivated, the next step is always goals and plans. Or plans and goals, whatever. But without goals, you just have absolutely no opportunity whatsoever to create anything meaningful other than pretty mundane life. And I've said that over and over again. And obviously, the faith and the belief that you can. And so what we're doing all day long with the 2 or 3% of our conscious thoughts is we're programming our subconscious mind. And we're really giving it the orders as to what to do and not do. And this isn't anything new, but the newest neuroscience absolutely proves that this is true. And so then the issue of creative visualization. And I know many people take this for granted and they don't really think about it, that you never really create anything that you don't have an image or an idea for already. And so since most of the images that people have relative to money is losing money, and they're living in poverty mentality and a not enough mentality, they're constantly imaging what they don't have rather than what they could have. And so the next step is obviously the commitment. Commitment is, interest is when you'll do it when it's convenient. Commitment is you're dedicated to make it happen. And I always put in here, and I will go through this, a moment of this, the issue of creating wealth is always related to creating value in the lives of someone else. This is from my really good friend that I've gotten to know so well. He's really one of the world's brightest people that's still alive. His name is George Land, who wrote 2 books, one, Grow or Die, and the second one was Breakpoint. And he always talks, he talks about the pull of the future must be greater than the gravity of the past. And when you think about this, the very first thing that you have to do is the very first thing I have to do is be very, very clear about what I want to be and what I want to have in 3 years, and then 5 years, and then 10 years. And the reason for this is that if we don't really plan a future, what happens is the past continues to repeat itself. It just repeats itself over and over and over. So once someone really, really focuses and says, this is the future I want, and defines it, then they establish the goals. And actually, a goal is really a structure. It's really the pathway for which we can take the actions to accomplish it. So we always tell the self the truth about where we've been and where we are, and we got to tell ourselves the truth about what we want. And if we don't, here's what happens. How we programmed our way of thinking is we begin to, what I like to refer to as sabotage ourselves. We begin to say, I'll take what life gives me. I'm not sure what to do. Procrastination sets in, indecision, doubt. And of course, the enemy of great is always good enough. And so the first and maybe most important is belief. Okay? A belief and the power of thought are so intricately tied together that what we do is we manifest in our life. Every one of you, including me, is bringing into existence in our lives what we already think and already believe. So our beliefs are either in our old brain, the amygdala, everything that has been stored, and everything that is, see, the old brain is there to protect us. Any time we go to risk anything or we worry about loss, we stay stuck to where we are. Whereas the new brain or the forebrain is all about the future. So those people, it's like the old adage, the people that lose continue to lose. The people that procrastinate continue to procrastinate. The people that take action are continuing to recreate and create the future. So the middle of this, in terms of what we think and what we believe, really is what we manifest in the physical world, in our lives, and everything around us. So the idea of creating wealth is a way of thinking that organizes our thoughts and actions into a path or style of living. In other words, everyone has a pattern. If you look back 3 years from now, you look back 5 years from now, you look back 10 years from now, it's probably likely that unless you look at your pattern and you change the structure, you're going to keep repeating what you had in the past. Everyone does. Everyone does, unless the pull of the future is greater than the gravity of the past. So the issue that we're talking about is to create a sense of order together with freedom. A great quote that I hope you will write down someplace where you see it: both poverty, and that is failure, and wealth, which is success, are the offspring of thought. Both poverty and wealth are the offspring of thought. So when we start talking about investing, I put this up here because I think it is so overwhelmingly important, and I haven't had enough time with anyone to spend time talking about my concept of living above the line versus the below the line. You're not going to read anything about this anywhere because nobody's really written very much about it. But people that live above the line are living positive, they're creative, they're looking forward, they're into the future, they're acting with hope. People that live below the line in their thinking are living with scarcity, there's not enough to go around, they're fearful and reactive. This has a tremendous impact on the reason why better than 90% of all investors never make money. And the reason is that they live below the line. Let me give you an example. Let me just show you this because you can see my pointer. Let's suppose the stock market or your investment portfolio is up here. It's around, let's just say, it's around 1,563. Now, because you might be, or let's say you're a reactive person, you're fearful, you know, you only take action when things are really, really bad. So your portfolio goes down 10% and you don't do anything. It goes down 20%. It goes down 30%. What does your investment advisor say? Don't sell. Hold on. Things are going to get better, because they're living in a reactive world as well. They're living below the line. They're not proactive. They're not creative. They're reacting. And we got to remember that most investment advisors make money whether we make money or not. So now it gets down here. Now you've lost 40%, or in this last market downturn, if you were so unfortunate, you lost 57%. So now you're down here and the pain is unbelievable. Like somebody that waits because they got a terrible toothache. And they wait and they wait and they wait and they don't do anything until they can't stand it. Now it's so bad that you have to do something. And so what a lot of people do, of course, is they what? They either hang on because they've lost so much, or they sell out. Now, what I want you to be aware of is something that's very, very critical. And since some of you have never listened to me, you've never been exposed to this, this is George Land's biologic cycle of growth and maturity and entropy. So what happens in phase one of growth is you're trying to find something that works. So you find something that works. Now picture a business. You find something that works, you're inventive, you're creative, you explore, and finally it starts to click. And once it starts to click, then the next phase is to grow it. You duplicate it, you modify it, you improve it, okay? And it grows and grows and grows, as everything does in our universe. It grows up to a certain point, and then it can't grow anymore. And then it moves into this phase, which is really the phase of it's either a midlife crisis, it's that the company or in your situation, maybe your practice, isn't making enough money as it did before. The attitude starts turning sour. This is when you really reach into the doldrums. Now, if we look at a typical corporate life cycle of a business, it matches this. Startup, it grows, people are really excited, everybody's happy, the company's growing. Then all of a sudden it reaches this point. It reaches a point of midlife crisis, or really this is a point of renewal, when something new comes along. You either reinvent it, you either reinvent yourself, the company that you own stock in or either reinvents itself or it continues to go into decline and die. So if we look at this and you think about this, there are too many people that are living in the 15th century. They're living in a world that's linear rather than cyclical. I mean, we have the fall, winter, summer, spring. Spring, summer. We have cycles. And, you know, while we're speaking and we're all sitting in our chairs listening, I hope, you know, we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Did you know that? That's how fast the world turns. 1,000 miles an hour. So everything is changing. Everything is moving. So just to give you a quick refresher, so only take a minute or two. 1920, 21, which is what? About 80 years ago. We started with the first tenement of recession. You know, this was the percentage of unemployment. This is the number of people that were impacted. It was pretty short. And then we had another one. Well, we'd kill for a 5.5% unemployment in our current economy, but back then that was a lot. And then we hit this period. This is a 5-year period. Now, and so the unemployment reached 25%, 100%. And then, see, everybody thinks that was just it, but it really went from 29 to 38. It was really a 10-year cycle because things got a little better, then they got a little worse again. Then they got better, you know, so this was really about 29 to 38, almost a 10-year cycle, which is really a cycle of crisis, which, by the way, in case you're not paying attention, is where we are exactly right now, 80 years later. So here was 48 to 49, and that was a little dip, and then 53 to 54, another one, and then 58 to 59. And then we had a pretty severe recession, but it was rather short, 9% unemployment, 88% impact. And we had another one in 81, 82, lasted about a year and a half. About 10.8% unemployment. Really, a lot of you realize that the government's now giving you manufactured numbers that were really far above 10.8% because there's so many people that have been laid off work, they're not even looking for jobs anymore. 1991, we had another period, a short recession, but it was 2 years, 7.7%. Then 2001 to 2003, we had a pretty substantial period. Then we no sooner, quote, recovered. Most people haven't recovered, and we moved into the next. So this really should be yellow because we're in this period of time right now, which is really a crisis period of time, and you need to understand this because it definitely impacts your investments. So if you look at this and you think, okay, if you go back to the S&P, Standard & Poor's Index, from 1945, when the high was 19, the low was 13. That was a 30% decline. It lasted 3 years. Then it went back up, as it always does. It really went back up 300%, didn't it? 13 to actually 400%. And then it went down 22% for about a little over a year. Then it did what it always does. It went back up again to 72. But then it had a new high low, but it still was a 28% drop. So 45, 56, 61. 66, it went up to a new high and went down to a new high low, a 22%. Then it went up substantially to 108, but then the reason I have this in yellow is because it went down lower than it had before, which was an unusual opportunity for those people that were properly invested. They didn't lose their shirts, but it was a year and a half. Then in 73, I remember this one. It went to a new high and another new low, an unusual, this is 48% drop. Then in 80, so 68, 73, 80, it went to a new high and then a new low, 27%. 87 was a short period of time, you know, about 3 months, went down, came right back. Then in 90, we had a fairly short period again from 223 to 368 and went back 20%. And then in March of 2000, look at this. Those people that were, quote, in the market from this period to this period, they just were simply making money just being in. But look at this. Then we had a 49% decline, which was about, and it lasted not quite 3 years. And then we no sooner had that, then we had 2007 when the market went back up, but it went to a new high low and it went down 57%, and it's moving into its third year. Now, if you look at this and you look at this, the market is down from 1565 to 1083, but it's gone up, but it's still down 30%. Now, we got to really remember that each of us, this is a whole system. The income that comes in, the income that goes out, we, that is you and I, live in this system. Our practices are impacted by the system. Our lives are impacted by the system. It's not just an individual part. So what I want to say that's really critical, and this comes from the people at MIT, and Fritz, my friend Robert Fritz, some of you know he wrote the foreword to my book. He's a personal and professional friend. 3 cardinal statements that lead us to everything. First of all, there's one statement that comes before this, and the statement is everything is energy. Everything is energy. You go through life taking the path of least resistance. Your money goes through life taking the path of least resistance. Everything does. The underlying structures of your life and business determine your path of least resistance. The good news is that you can change the fundamental underlying structures. Now, our subject today is investing. But if you think that money is not subject to the same rules of everything else in the universe, because all money is energy, and if you think that you can just go around and not have a structure to how your money's flowing in your practice, in your personal life, and your investments, I got news for you. You are going to live below the line. So, current reality is what you have. Your vision is what you want. Okay? So, I've said to you time and time again that you have to be crystal clear about what it is that you want, because if you're not, what you're going to do is sabotage yourself. So the science of creating wealth starts with desire, but the desire has to be transformed into a specific purpose, and that purpose is beyond simply a goal. A goal leads to what it is, the outcome you're looking for. So desire is transformed into wealth with strategies. We've said you got to know the exact amount you desire, and you got to be definite about the exact amount, and you have to have, you got to know exactly what you're going to give for what you're going to get, and you've got to establish a definite date. Okay? Now, this definite date and this definite desire becomes more important the longer you live, because you start to realize that every year you're in practice, your practice is really worth less to you relative to your ability to create wealth, because you have fewer years to practice. So you get more serious about it. So there's something that happens someplace around the age of 47 to 50, 51, 52, sometimes even later, sadly, when people really start getting serious about it. So now you really work about creating the plan, which links your desire and your purpose immediately. You got to write it all out. And if you've been paying attention to these webinars, you've been doing this. You've been writing things out. Where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And so you want to describe completely what your plan is. Your plan includes what you're going to get, what you're going to give, how you're going to do it. And then you got to read, as I said over and over again, you got to read this every day. And and writing out your professional goals keeps them in front of you. It keeps them concise. So this is the same thing is true with your investments. You've got to have it in front of you. Act as if, and you'll receive it. I've talked about that. The issue of habits. Well, where are habits anyway? Habits are in your unconscious mind. In other words, about 90% of what we do every day, we don't even think about doing. We're not consciously thinking about what we're doing with our money. We're not consciously thinking about what we're doing with our time. We've relegated all this to our old brain and to our subconscious, and it's taken care of it. Why we set goals, why we're specific, is because we got to program that subconscious brain, because that's the one that's driving the bus. So then again, we get into all the self-imposed limitations, which I'm not going to do today. So remember that most of the obstacles that we have relative to investing and saving are self-imposed, and they're emotional. You know, my buddy Chuck Hogan, who was a golf shrink that really helped me, not with my golf game, but he's kept me alive as a pilot, would say 90% of golf is mental, and the other 5% is another 5% is psychological. So we've got obstacles. We got to know what they are. So we're going to write them out. We're going to keep them in our minds. Now, here's what I wanted. Here's what I want. It's so important. It's tied together with below the line. It's tied together with what our investments do. If you look at October of 2007, when the market was 1565, it went all the way down to 667. That was its low. Okay? Most of us don't buy at the absolute high, and we don't buy at the absolute low, but that's a 57% decline. Now, to every one of your investment advisors that tells you to hold on, they're idiots. They're absolutely, totally wrong. Because what does it take to get back to from 1667 to 1565? They never give you the math. You've got to, your portfolio now has to go up 234%. At 9%, it would take you 26 years to get back to where you were. At 9%, it would take you 26 years to get back to work. This is why I'm absolutely convinced that the investments strategists, the mutual fund people, are absolutely out to ensure that you never make money. Because unless you have a way to protect that gain and protect the downside here, okay, there's just no way you're going to win, because the market is cyclical, because growth is cyclical. Companies go up, they grow, they die. So what I've said, and a couple of you have emailed me about this, so I want to go over this. What I've said is that you need more than one investment strategy. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I don't really care what you do with your cash. I think T-bills, laddered treasury bills, is a good place to put money. I was talking to one of you today about this. I think the issue of index funds for diversity, but I don't think a lot of people really understand that if you're in a stock index fund, you are not diversified. If you're in one index fund, and it's even an S&P index fund, you are not diversified. You're all in stocks. Your portfolio then has the risk of the S&P. Okay? So you would have, and if you did have index funds, and I'm not against them, I certainly think that you ought to be working with an advisor, somebody that really understands how to modulate even the risk, because you can have index funds in cash or cash equivalents, you can have index funds in bonds, you can have index funds of foreign stocks, you can pick an individual country, you know, but that helps with this diversity, because we want to keep a certain amount in cash always. This is the tough part for people. But what this does is it reduces the risk of your portfolio, and it also gives you the opportunity to use cash if you need it at various times to buy stocks. Now, I've mentioned to you several times that I think the strategy of buying A-rated, A minus, A plus, A double plus, A triple plus, blue chip stocks that pay dividends, and those dividends grow at the rate of 10% a year, is what many, many very wealthy people have done, because they know they're always making money. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to hold that individual stock. If that individual stock starts to reduce its dividends, they're going to sell it and replace it. But that's a great strategy. I've probably personally done better here than any place else. Am I against people buying gold? No. But I wouldn't put more than 10% of that. Am I against limited real estate partnerships? No. but I wouldn't put any more than 10% in it. Am I against other kinds of precious metals? No, but I wouldn't put more than 10% in it. What happens is, one of the flaws that people get into is, we as dentists and those people that own our own businesses, we've got plenty of risk. We've got risk in our own businesses every day. We don't understand it. We don't want to create any more risk than we have to have in other investments. I talked to a dentist just the other day who has bought an insurance policy. He's putting $60,000 a year in an insurance policy. Well, I don't have a problem with that really, but he's overinvested in insurance if he's not invested in other areas. So it's really the balance of it and the diversification of it. One other, and I'll get to this later, but I'm going to show you this again. I'm an advocate of having 33% of my portfolio in some kind of cash environment. People say, well, you're getting a little older. That's true. But, I don't ever like to lose money. I don't care if I'm 22 or I'm 52 or 62. I want to lose money. I think that we ought to have some of our money in bonds. Should they be all in U.S. bonds? Of course not. They could be in foreign bonds, other countries, not just bonds. And I'm a strong advocate is that you've got to have something in your portfolio for growth. Something's got to be the driving engine for growth. And so what we see is, as this grows, we need to rebalance it, because if we don't rebalance it and take some of the earnings off of this, then we're simply increasing our level of risk. Now, I understand, and you need to understand that this portfolio is not going to grow as much as a portfolio that had 70% in stocks. I understand that, but see, my goal personally is I don't want to ever lose more than 10% in any one year. So I mentioned this last time. Here's an example of a tier 3. A Johnson & Johnson pays 3.6% dividend, which is more than you can get in any bank. Chevron is 3.6, Philip Morris 4.7, Exxon 3, Coca-Cola 3.3, PepsiCo 3, Procter & Gamble 3.1, 3.4, Atria 6.6. Realize this, that every one of these is growing more than 10% per year. The dividends are growing more than 10% per year. So let's just say you invested $100,000 in J&J. Not that you would or should, but use it as a number. That means that 3% of that is $3,600. Now that $3,600 is going to grow 10% every year. So what's going to happen within 10 years? It's going to have doubled. It's going to compound it on itself. And so what the wealthiest people do in the universe is they buy these things and they hold them, and within about 15 or 20 years, they're making more money on that individual purchase of the stock per year than they were on their individual purchase. But there's some things you need to do. You need to be sure that the debt is less than 50%, and the reason for this is that the debt needs, if they have a higher than that, they're going to be paying the banks back before they can pay you. We want them to be paying out less than 50%, because if they're paying more than that, there's no room for growth. And the PE is always 15% or less. So the charts always suggest potential for what to buy. Now, I think that, as the years and years that I look at and understand that I don't manage people's money, and I can't really tell you what to do, and I really don't want to. I can only tell you what I observe. That one of the cardinal flaws or obstacles people have is they try to get rich too quick. I mean, there's a get-rich-quick scheme on every corner. Everybody, they want to make a killing on one investment. And it just really doesn't happen, okay? And my admonition is never put more than 10% in any one deal, no matter how good the deal looks, okay? Investors who don't have stop losses or continue to rebalance their portfolios. I think you need to really consider talking to your advisor or demanding from your advisor that if you are in a stock portfolio, that you put a stop loss on on those things that can really hurt you. And then, of course, the issue of over-speculation. You know, over-speculation is getting into those things that you really, really don't know enough about, but they sound really, really good. Okay? Or how's this? You have no investment system. You don't have a structure. You don't have a strategy. And so then what happens is you buy and sell on your emotions. You buy and sell on your emotions. What you want to have is a strategy that you can sleep at night and you're not worried about it, okay? And many people are under diversified. And unless people have all of their bonds, stocks, and cash in one portfolio, in one place, they have no idea what the risk is. They have no idea what the potential of the reward is. I know when I first started investing in mutual funds back in 1966, I would buy $1,000 of this fund, $1,000 another one, and I thought it was really cool. I got up to about 25 different mutual funds, and I didn't have any idea what my risk was and the reward was, and how do you track all that? So I was really initially over-diversified. So you can be under-diversified, put too many of your eggs in one basket, or you could be over-diversified. And then if you're over-diversified, you really can't monitor the risk or the gain or the potential losses. So I urge you to be working with someone. As you know, as I've said, I work with Schwab. I don't own any Schwab stock right now, and I'm not promoting them. I guess I really am, but I mean promoting somebody like that puts all of your investments in one place so you can really look at it and monitor the risk. Because if you can't monitor the risk, here's another thing that happens. There's an old adage, and I've forgotten about it, but a friend of mine that I've known for years, actually 30 years, Andre Montgomery, works for Professional Economics Bureau. He used to say, if you take a dentist to lunch, you can sell him anything. And so a lot of people make friends with you, but they really aren't experts. They really don't know what they're doing. The guy across the street that's selling insurance or a life insurance policy, the guy down the street that's working for a brokerage firm, all of a sudden they become your friend. How do you know they know anything about what they're doing? So when you invest with someone, it's great to be friends with them, but make sure they know what they're doing. Make sure that they've got a track record and you can see it, and you can talk to people that they've worked with already, and they can talk to you about what their performance has been. And of course, here's another huge one that I see on a regular basis: investing in things you don't know anything about. You know, if you're going to buy a car and you're going to buy a antique or something, you better know what's going on. You buy a Corvette, you buy a '63 Corvette, you better know what you're talking about, or I guarantee you're going to get a piece of junk. And that's exactly what people do when they get into investing. They don't have a system. They're under-diversified. They're over-diversified. That you can't really monitor the risk of the portfolio. Sometimes people invest with friends, but really another really one is they invest in things they don't know anything about. So I urge and I continue to make this pitch, and how many dentists really have a financial plan, and how many dentists really are monitoring the plan, and how many dentists meet with their financial planner 3 or 4 times a year, at least the person that's running their portfolio, to really know what's going on. And of course, also, another huge obstacle in investing is inadequate tax planning, because everything we do invest in, if it's inside or outside a pension plan or some retirement vehicle, does have consequences. Or we get too focused on returns. Now, we're in a period of time in which we are in what many people call a down cycle. If you've read The Fourth Turning, they're talking about this as a 10-year, 15-year crisis. I believe it. I've been saying that for about 5 years, and nobody's listening. But you're going to be focused more now on risk. As soon as the market starts turning up and you talk to, oh, I'm making all this money, you're liable to jump into that. And those are the people that always lose money. They jump back and forth. They don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy. They're not taking taxes into consideration. They're shooting from the hip. And they don't monitor their investments. Okay? They don't monitor. See, I like to monitor my net worth. Every quarter I do a monitoring of my net worth. And I look at it and see, am I moving ahead, am I moving behind, really what's happening. So when you think about a financial advisor, and when I say a financial advisor, I'm really not talking now about simply a financial planner. I'm talking about somebody that you're working with that's going to manage your money, okay? That you're going to work with together, and you're going to tell them exactly what you want, because if you get what they want and you don't hold firm to it, you're going to lose your you-know-whatskis. You have to be held accountable, but you got to hold that person accountable. You got to hold the financial planner or the investor, the guy that's investing your money, accountable. And how you do that is you meet with them either on the phone, you get an accountability report on risk and reward and your portfolio and where it is, what it's earned, what it's lost, what its risk is, what its potential for gain is every 3 months. If you don't get that, don't invest your money, because you're going to lose it. I'll guarantee you. You need to always be thinking about, you got to save something, okay? And so I mentioned that there's some strategies, although I'm not going to get into this in detail here, about debt. So a lot of people will say, well, when should I put money to pay down my house? Should I put money in investments? Where should I put my money? And I've got a couple rules of thumb, and they're just rules of thumb. And one of them is no more than 20% of the money that you take home, your home should be for interest only. Now this isn't related to your practice or your business. This is related to your lifestyle. Okay. See, if more than 20% of your take-home income is for interest, what that's saying is you're too far in debt. And so now you're not going to have the money at home to invest. So you got to take that into consideration. The other rule, it's just a rule of thumb. It's not something you live or die by. No more than 10% of your practice gross income should be in for interest and principal. Okay? I like it to be 5. But if you want to pay down something more rapidly, or you want to expand or build your practice, because remember, your practice is the oil well. Your practice is what generates the revenues and the income that drive your whole financial system and really your life. The home, this is just interesting. I met a dentist last month. He has absolutely no clue about and monitors none of the expense at home, but watches every penny in the practice. Okay? That's really interesting. So it's great to watch your money in the practice, but don't you think it's important to know, what you're spending at home? And as I've said to you, I think you should use several strategies. I don't mean several people to invest your money. I mean several strategies under the same roof. It's very critical that you don't put all your eggs in one strategy. So you got to meet every 3 months. You've got to be held accountable. They got to be held accountable. You need to be concerned about interest at home, and you need to be concerned about interest in principal in the bank, in your office. So again, I want to remind you, and I want to show you this again, that this is an entire system. Too many people I talk to a dentist. I wish he was on this. I talked to him today. I love this guy. He's got about 6 different people fussing around with his investment strategies, and I'm telling you, he's not going to be able to retire, even though he's making a mountain of money, because he doesn't know where it's at. Too many people are picking at it, and he's cherry picking, and they're cherry picking, and he has no idea what his results are. He has no idea what his risk is. So here's generally, and some of you have been to seminars that I've done, I've used the bucket theory, the lid thing. The problem is this really needs to be opened, and so now I'm using poker chips, and I'll show you that too. But here's really all the money comes in, and then all the money starts to go out. Well, it goes out to both fixed and variable expenses in your practice. So if your practice is sitting there above 60%, not in the 55 to 50% or below range, I mean, it's eating up a lot of money, and then you come over and here you are in your personal. If this is 65 and this is 30, I'm sorry, you're out of cash. You just don't have it. And the third area, and I would suggest that most of us understand under the current administration and where this country's going into its socialistic posture and its down-leveling, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't care. That's what's happening. The taxes, your taxes are going to be ever on the increase. So you got to be cautious about what, not only what you got to pay attention to this and not at year end, or there won't be anything left over here. You're just not going to have enough to fuel your retirement and your kids' education. So here's another way of looking at the same thing. I had kind of a brain, you know what, about 2 months ago, and I thought, okay, so the blue chip, this blue chip represents all the money you're going to take in your life as a dentist, whatever that amount is. For a typical dentist today, starting at 30, it's going to be around 30 million. This represents all the money that you're going to spend to run your practice. This represents all the money you're going to live on, $7.5 million in 30 years. This represents the $2.5 million that you're going to pay in taxes, and this represents a $2 million investment. Okay, so you got to ask yourself, you really think of this, okay, if I put $2 million away, what am I going to have? If you saved and invested $2 million of your total $30 million, you'd be comfortable and you'd reach financial independence. $2 million in the lifetime of this. Lifetime. So what percentage is that anyway? It's less than 10%. Okay, now let's look at this. So typical of what we see. So typical every day. These 5 chips represent your total revenues of the lifetime in your practice. The 30 is what I talked about. Okay, now if this is 30 million and this is 20 million, just this. The only change was in the 2 million in what it cost you to run your practice. So if usually today it's around 68%, what we see every day, day in and day out. Okay? Now that's a GP. We even see specialists that are at 65% that should be at 45%. But look at this. If you're really running this, you're still going to take this money to live on. You're still going to pay the taxes, but there's no money left. Okay? So I urge you to think and start really thinking, you see, this is a system. Just another way to represent it. It's a total system. So I would urge you to think about your practice, your business. So I'm turning into the sessions in the future. I'm turning to using the practice as a wealth creator. I'm going to start talking about the key principles, strategies, and structures that drive growth. And some of you are in need of renewal. Some of you are in a different practice cycle. You're either in the beginning, you're either growing, you're in midlife. But the whole idea here in creating wealth is to transfer the energy that you have towards growth. And so we're going to look at the key drivers, the key elements that create growth. So if anybody has a comment and they want to email me, many of you have been emailing me, and if I can respond with an email, I do. If I feel I need to talk to you for a few minutes, I do that, because I think sometimes simply I may not even totally understand exactly what you're saying, but the issues that you need to think about are the same ones I need to think about. How do I earn it? How do I keep it? Where do I invest it so I don't lose it? So those of you that are interested, feel free to go to the website or go to this, www.schustercenter.com/contact. What do you call that, Barb? _US.ASPX. And we'll have a conversation, or email me directly anything about investments. And remember, I can't advise you as to what to do, but I can tell you what I think as a friend. Okay? So thanks again, and I look forward to more challenging webinars. The series is taking a shift to how do we make it and how do we keep it, and moving away from how do we invest it. So please feel free to add or ask questions or email us questions or anything that's on your mind. Okay? God bless, and I'll talk to you soon.